Welcome to LA's Listening Lounge with stories you can hear and words you can feel. Today's story is about love, betrayal, resilience, and the power of peace. This is Choosing Peace by author L.A. Logan. Chapter 1. Young Love. The scent of chalk dust lingered in the stale air of room 217, curling around the heavy oak desks where sunlight spilled through narrow windows. Sasha slid quietly into her usual seat by the window, arranging her notebooks so the shifting light would dance across the pages. She preferred mornings like these, moments when the world outside was muted, and she could lose herself in the hush of scribbling pens and the gentle tap of shoes against linoleum. Carlos always arrived with a barely contained energy, his laughter echoing in the corridor before he even entered. He had that knack for settling into the space beside her as if it belonged to him, flashing a quick grin with his textbook balanced carelessly on his knee. Sasha often found herself watching the way he leaned in during group discussions, never missing a beat, while she tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear and tried not to let her cheeks flush when he caught her eye. Their chemistry was undeniable, drawing whispers and nudges from classmates who bet how long it would take for them to become more than just academic partners. In the soft glow of autumn afternoons, Sasha would sometimes glance across the room and catch Carlos grinning at her, his eyes lingering a fraction too long. She wondered if he noticed how her fingers trembled when they brushed his as they passed notes, how she pressed the edges of her planner to calm herself. By graduation, their lives had become tightly interwoven. They enrolled together at the local university, two names side by side on the course lists, sharing early morning walks beneath arching trees whose leaves painted gold shadows on the sidewalks. Late-night study sessions blurred into laughter-filled evenings, the aroma of strong coffee and microwaved noodles mixing with the quiet thrum of hope for the future. They joined clubs, volunteered, made every effort to carve out time for each other, even when life spun unpredictably. When Caleb arrived, their world shrank and blossomed all at once. Sasha kept a battered photo of her new family tucked into the pocket of her planner, pulling it out between classes, her thumb gently tracing the smiling faces. She would steady herself in the mirror, reciting silent promises to keep going, no matter how tired she felt. Sometimes, as she packed Caleb's diaper bag one-handed while reviewing marketing notes, she caught herself wishing for more hours in the day, more certainty in each decision. At 21, she was balancing motherhood and an engagement to her high school sweetheart. Sasha cherished the dream of their perfect family. Carlos by her side, Caleb's laughter echoing down the hallway, their small apartment full of love and possibility. Yet every so often, a frown would crease Carlos's forehead during family dinners when his phone buzzed, and Sasha would notice a shadow flicker across his expression before he forced a smile. She wondered if she was imagining things, if the world she fought for could really be as sturdy as she hoped. She clung to the idea of an unbreakable future, tucking away doubts with worn receipts and family photos, her resolve growing with every quiet act of devotion. Sometimes, late at night, she'd lie awake listening to the steady rhythm of Carlos's breathing, asking herself if she would recognize the sound of something breaking. But dreams, Sasha would learn, don't shatter all at once. Sometimes the first cracks appear in moments so small they're almost invisible. Chapter 2. Another Love. It was a late Friday evening. After a long day with Caleb, Sasha had just settled him into bed and was moving through the gentle rituals of tidying up, her mind drifting to wedding plans and the comfort of familiar routines. She was exhausted, but the thought of marrying Carlos still filled her with hope. A hope she clung to, even as she sensed something off in his posture as he lingered by the kitchen table. "Can you sit with me for a minute?" Carlos's voice sounded distant, shaky. The request was simple, but the way he couldn't meet her eyes sent a tremor through Sasha's chest. She sat, her heart thudding with quiet dread. "What's wrong? Is everything okay at work?" He shook his head, and for a long moment words seemed to fail him. Sasha thought of their first date in 11th grade, the way he'd made her laugh until she cried, how he'd promised her forever. She'd believed him then. She'd built her whole life around that belief. "Work's fine," Carlos said finally, his voice rough. "But I need to tell you something, and I don't even know how to start." Sasha braced herself, her mind flashing through possibilities, none of them even close to what came next. "I made a terrible mistake," he said, almost whispering. I slept with someone else. She's pregnant. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did it. I felt lost, overwhelmed at work, lonely, I guess. But that's no excuse." The words struck her like a blow, leaving her breathless, numb. For a second, the world seemed to tilt off its axis. Sasha tried to speak, but only a strangled gasp came out. She remembered their nights together, the laughter, the dreams they'd sketched out for their future. All of it felt suddenly fragile, like shards of glass in her hands. "What?" she managed, voice barely above a whisper. "Carlos, how could you? Was she just someone at work? Someone you barely know?" He dragged his hands over his face, not looking at her. "Her name is Samantha. She's smart, ambitious. We started talking after hours. I didn't plan for anything like this. Honestly, I don't even know how it happened. I felt so disconnected from everything, including you, and I hated myself for it even while it was happening." Sasha's mind spun. Memories thundered through her. Caleb's first steps, the nights she'd stayed up nursing him, the sacrifices she'd made to keep their family afloat. Had she missed the signs? Was her love not enough? Was she too focused on holding everything together to see the cracks forming underneath? "She's sleeping with my soon-to-be husband and having my stepchild. That makes her smart," she said hoarsely, her words tumbling out raw and jagged. "Did she even know you already had a family, Carlos? Did you bother to tell her that?" He flinched, pain flickering across his face. "I didn't want to hurt you. I swear, Sasha, I never wanted any of this. But I let it happen. I can't explain why. I was weak, and I hate myself for letting you down." Tears burned Sasha's eyes, but she forced herself to keep her voice steady. She refused to let him see her break. The last thing she wanted was to let him know just how shattered she felt, how her heart was splitting open with every word. "What about Caleb? What about us? Our wedding? Our families?" Her voice cracked, the years of shared hopes and silent promises straining under the weight of betrayal. Carlos shook his head, looking lost. "I don't know anymore. I wish I did. I just need time to figure things out. To understand what I've done, and if I can ever fix it." Sasha stared at him in disbelief. The man she'd cherished since high school was asking for time to think, time he hadn't taken before upending everything they'd built together. Why did he only realize the consequences now, after everything was broken? "What exactly do you need to think about, Carlos?" she demanded, voice trembling with hurt and incredulity. "Is she really worth leaving behind the real love I have for you? Is she worth breaking Caleb's heart?" Carlos's answer was blunt, but his voice was thick with regret. "I honestly don't know, Sasha. I can't promise anything right now. I'm so sorry." As the silence grew heavy between them, Sasha's thoughts spiraled. She remembered the laughter, the fights, the quiet moments, and the dreams she'd sacrificed for a family that now felt like it was slipping through her fingers. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words caught in her throat. The conversation ended, the air thick and unspoken. Sasha sat alone, hollowed out by grief, knowing with chilling certainty that her world had changed forever. Chapter 3: The Way Love Goes. The days that followed pressed down on Sasha like the weight of a collapsed bridge, every hour heavier with the dust of what once was. She clung to routine, packing Caleb's lunch, dropping him at daycare, tidying the house, as if order might keep her afloat. Yet inside she felt herself unraveling, a slow death stitched into the silent spaces of each day. Nights were the hardest. Caleb would look up at her, eyes wide with hope, asking if he could wait for Carlos to come home and read his bedtime story. "Not tonight, son," Sasha whispered, her voice barely reaching the surface of the grief that threatened to swallow her whole. When Caleb finally drifted into sleep, Sasha lay awake, tracing the outline of Carlos's empty pillow. The darkness was thick, her thoughts spiraling. How did I miss the signs? Was I too trusting, too eager to believe in forever? Was every gesture, every sacrifice invisible to him? The ceiling overhead blurred, her mind replaying the laughter and the quiet moments they'd once shared, each memory now tinted with regret. Unable to bear the silence, Sasha reached for her phone, dialing her best friend, Monique. "I feel so lost," Sasha confessed, her voice trembling. "Every day I wonder if I'm enough for Caleb without his father, if I ever was enough for Carlos." Monique's response was gentle, steady. "You're more than enough, Sasha. You've always been strong, even when you couldn't see it. Caleb knows it, I know it. You're allowed to feel broken, but you're not alone." Sasha hesitated, tears clinging to her lashes. I don't know how to start over. I used to imagine all these things for Caleb. A warm home, family dinners, feeling safe. I don't know what any of that looks like anymore." Monique listened, allowing Sasha's words to settle. Maybe it's time to think about what you want, too. Not just what you've lost. After hanging up, Sasha tried to focus on what Monique said. Her thoughts turned to Caleb, to the way his small hand fit perfectly in hers, to the resilience glimmering in his eyes. He hadn't asked for any of this confusion. In those moments, Sasha felt a flicker of determination. She owed him survival, and herself a chance to rediscover hope. The transition from despair to resolve was never smooth. It was more like wading through mud, each step uncertain. Some mornings, Sasha would catch herself staring out the kitchen window, watching the rain streak down the glass, her chest tight with longing for the life she'd believed was hers. Other times she remembered Carlos as he was in happier days, his laugh echoing in sunlit rooms, the feel of his hand in hers, and wondered if that version of him had ever truly existed. Even the smallest decisions felt monumental, whether to call Carlos for help with bills or to shoulder the weight alone. When he told her, "You shouldn't rely on me, just in case things don't work out," the words landed like stones. How could he so easily dismiss not only her, but their son? Carlos was their lifeline. Without his support, the apartment, daycare, and all the bills seemed impossible. Yet Sasha refused to let one conversation destroy her resolve. She pressed forward even as hopelessness threatened to pull her under. Talking to Carlos once brought joy, but now each call left her emptier than before. On the worst nights, Caleb would sense her sadness, curling up beside her and saying "Mommy" in his gentle voice, a touch that sparked a fragile strength in her. For him, she would draw breath and carry on. After all, Caleb deserved a mother who could weather the storm, even if she didn't yet know how. Sasha's journey was messy, raw, and unfinished. She was a woman searching for light beneath the rubble, haunted by memories yet determined to build something new. The only question she could not answer was, how? Chapter 4, Unexpected Love. A month had slipped by since Sasha first began to accept that her life with Carlos was over. Grief still clung to her shoulders, heavy and persistent, yet there were moments, flashes of sunlight between the clouds, when she sensed the possibility of something different. When her great-uncle Jack passed away, the loss landed quietly, as if the universe was gently nudging her toward change. He had never married, never had children, but the warmth of his memory lingered for Sasha, woven through childhood visits and secret gifts of candy. At his memorial, the murmur of low conversation mixed with the fragrance of lilies and old carpet. Sasha found herself recalling his words, "You've got more strength in you than you realize." She pressed those memories to her heart, needing them more than ever. The days between the memorial and the will reading passed in a haze of uncertainty. Sasha wandered through her routines, the world feeling muffled and distant. She replayed Uncle Jack's words, wondering what surprises might still be waiting for her. Each morning she woke with a dull ache in her chest, yet by night she felt the stirrings of anticipation she couldn't quite name. When the day for the will reading arrived, Sasha sat alone in the wood-paneled office, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The air was thick with the scent of old paper, polished wood, and a lingering trace of tobacco, remnants of her uncle's presence. Family gathered, their voices low and speculative, discussing what they hoped had been left to them. Sasha listened, her thoughts drifting between gratitude for the simple heirlooms she expected and anxiety about what might come. As the attorney began, Sasha's pulse quickened, echoing each word in the stillness. When he reached the heart of Uncle Jack's wishes, the moment seemed to slow, every detail sharpening. "To my great-niece, Sasha Ann Turner, I leave my business, Turner's Hardware, along with the property and all associated assets." The words thundered through her. Sasha's heart pounded, and for a long moment she could only stare, her breath shallow and uneven. A rush of disbelief, gratitude, and sudden anxiety collided within her. Could she really step into Uncle Jack's shoes? The weight of the inheritance pressed in, both exhilarating and terrifying. She felt the smooth wood of the chair beneath her fingers, the distant hum of the lawyer's voice, the stunned hush as family members offered hugs and whispered congratulations. The world tilted. Just moments before, she had worried about making rent, and now, overnight, she was a business owner and the proprietor of a mortgage-free cottage home. Later, when she unlocked the door to Turner's Hardware for the first time, Sasha was greeted by the familiar creak of the hinges and the earthy aroma of sawdust and metal that clung to the air. Shelves gleamed with tools and paint cans, sunlight casting warm patterns on the scuffed linoleum floor. 2 longtime employees greeted her with cautious smiles, their eyes searching hers for signs of the future. Sasha shook their hands, feeling the roughness of calloused palms, a reminder that this business had survived through hard work and community. She wandered the aisles, running her fingers along the neatly stacked merchandise, absorbing the quiet strength of the place. A customer waved hello, asking if she was Jack's niece, the new boss. Sasha managed to smile, her nerves still fluttering, but she spoke with more conviction than she felt. Yes, I'm Sasha. Standing in the center of the store, surrounded by the legacy her uncle had left, Sasha let herself hope. The opportunity before her was breathtaking, daunting, and real. For the first time in weeks, she saw the possibility of building something new, not just for herself, but for Caleb. She could create a home filled with warmth and safety, and perhaps finally find her way forward. The courage she felt wasn't loud, but it was deep and steady, a quiet promise that she could weather what came next, and maybe, just maybe, thrive. Chapter 5. Real love would have known better. News traveled fast in their little town, and it was not the news Carlos wanted spreading faster than it takes the latest model Corvette to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Sasha had heard whispers Carlos found out that little Miss Different, who was smarter and ambitious, had the morals of an back-alley street cat. Apparently, he wasn't the only one Samantha was keeping late work hours with. After he read her family's group text, where she bragged about tricking him into believing the baby was his, when he confronted her with what he saw, she had no choice but to admit the truth. Carlos, embarrassed and feeling dejected, wasted no time reaching out to the one woman he knew loved him unconditionally. His ego refused to sit in the fact he left Sasha for someone who was nothing but a fraud. In his mind, he could easily win Sasha over if he sounded regretful and sincerely apologetic. I messed up, bad babe. I was confused, just not thinking straight. I was under so much pressure at work. What exactly was confusing about when given the option, you chose your family every time, Carlos? How do you think crooked when it comes to your soon-to-be wife and your son? Carlos quickly realized winning her back was not going to be as easy as he thought it would. It was the stress from work. I should have told you what I was dealing with instead of another woman. Like I said, then I was confused and stressed. Now I am very clear that I want my family back. I miss you and Caleb so much. I want us back. Let's fix us, Sasha. If not for any other reason, let's do it for Caleb. Carlos was holding Sasha's hand. She looked deeply in his eyes to see if the man she had loved since high school was really back, or if it was the new version she had no idea existed. As her eyes locked with his eyes, her heart confirmed with her mind it was over. She felt nothing but disgust as she looked at him. She had replayed the lackluster speech he had just given in her mind, and it landed like a needle on a scratched record. She was annoyed and ready to be out of his presence. Nothing in her said Caleb needed this, absolutely nothing. I can't, I won't. And I will not, she said softly. There is no way after everything you said and did to us, to Caleb. I will never trust you with me again, Carlos. We have come to the end of our story as a couple. His face could not conceal the shock he had at her response. Are you serious? I apologize, Sasha. I wasn't thinking straight. Chapter 6. Love Can Heal Broken Hearts. The following months, Sasha settled into her new normal, one that was daunting yet full of possibility. She was halfway through the modest renovations to the cottage, even letting Caleb have design choices for his bedroom. She devoted herself to learning the nuances of the hardware business, relying on the loyal staff her uncle had left behind. Early on, during a quiet Wednesday morning, Mr. Howard, a longtime employee with silver hair and a gentle smile, caught Sasha staring anxiously at a stack of invoices. You know, your uncle always said, the only mistake is not asking for help, Mr. Howard offered, his voice kind. You've got a good head on your shoulders, Sasha. We're here for you. His words eased a tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying. She smiled, genuinely, and nodded. Thank you, Mr. Howard. I'm still finding my way, but I'm glad I'm not alone. Little by little, Sasha modernized the store and built connections in the community. Her staff became more than colleagues. They became a circle of encouragement, quick with advice or a joke when things felt overwhelming. Sometimes, Mrs. Wallace would sneak her a cup of strong tea and whisper, You're stronger than you think, Sasha. This place is in good hands. Caleb often played in the back office, and sometimes a staff member would let him help stock shelves. His delighted giggles filled the store each time he hung an item or placed one on a shelf. One afternoon, Sasha knelt beside Caleb as he struggled to fit a wrench into its proper place on the pegboard. Here, watch, Sasha said softly, guiding his small hands. You line it up like this, see? It fits perfectly when you take your time. Caleb beamed, proud of his accomplishment, and for a moment Sasha felt her heart swell with something pure. In those simple moments, teaching Caleb, laughing with her staff, watching the sunlight pour through the front windows, she discovered a happiness that was entirely her own. She was no longer a bird in a cage, but a dove soaring into blue, uncharted sky, finally free to choose her own direction. And peace, the kind she once thought impossible, wrapped around her like a favorite quilt on a chilly morning, gentle and certain. Chapter 7. Love reveals all Carlos's days blurred together in a haze of disappointment. Gray skies overhead, the constant hum of city traffic echoing in his hollow apartment. His hands trembled as he scrolled through emails, each one a silent reminder that the opportunities he once boasted about had dwindled to nothing. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional rattle of rain against the window, and the distant laughter drifting up from the street below. He missed the warmth of home, the soft glow of evening light in the kitchen, Caleb's giggle, Sasha's steady voice. He wondered how he had let pride blind him to what truly mattered, wishing he could turn back time to choose differently. In the quiet of night, lying awake, Carlos replayed the moments he'd pushed Sasha away, rationalizing each harsh word, each careless decision. Now there was no one left to hear his excuses. What if he had listened? What if he had cherished instead of challenged? The questions haunted him. One afternoon, wandering the streets in search of something he couldn't name, Carlos found himself outside Turner's Hardware. He pressed his palm to the cool glass, peering in at Sasha, her laughter mingling with Caleb's, the golden light framing their faces as they worked side by side. For a moment, the scent of sawdust and coffee drifted through the doorway, stirring memories of simpler times. Sasha looked radiant, her smile genuine, her movements sure. Caleb was content, his small hands busy and his joy infectious. Carlos's chest tightened with regret. This is what I lost, he thought, the realization hitting him with the sharpness of winter air. He debated entering. Could he ever be welcome again? Was there forgiveness to be found? He wondered not only what he'd thrown away, but what he could possibly salvage. He knew that apologies might never be enough, not for the wounds he'd left behind. Yet in watching Sasha and Caleb, he felt a flicker of hope. Could he change, even if just for himself? He lingered a moment longer, heart pounding, whispering an unheard apology to the family he'd mishandled. Resolving not to let shame define him, Carlos turned away, the crunch of gravel beneath his shoes marking each step into the unknown. He promised himself he'd try, even if progress was slow. A humble gesture here, a sincere word there. Perhaps with time, he could learn what it truly meant to love, to seek forgiveness, to make amends, to become worthy of peace. And so, with a final glance at the life he once had, Carlos walked on, the hope for redemption sparking quietly inside him, an ember in the cold, ready to glow, if only he would nurture it. Chapter 8. Love and Happiness. Months later, Carlos appeared at the store, his shoulders hunched, his eyes uncertain, the bravado that once defined him worn thin. He stood just inside the door, twisting his hands, searching Sasha's face for a sign of welcome. "Sasha," he began, voice raw. "I messed up. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I'm sorry for everything, for the way I treated you and Caleb." Sasha met his eyes, the tension of old memories flickering and fading inside her. "I'm not angry anymore, Carlos," she said softly, her tone both gentle and firm. "I just want peace for me and Caleb." Carlos shifted, hope flickering briefly. "Does that mean maybe we could try again? I've changed. I swear I have." She shook her head, her answer steady. "I hope you find what you're looking for. I have. Caleb and I are happy, and I'm not giving up our peace. Not for you, not for anyone who doesn't respect it." Carlos's gaze dropped, his words trailing off. "I get it. I wish things were different." "There's nothing you can say or do now," Sasha replied, her voice kind but unwavering. "I'm not letting you make us an option again." He lingered for a moment, then turned and headed toward the door, the silence between them full of things left unsaid. As Carlos disappeared down the street, Sasha felt a gentle lightness settle over her, as if a weight she'd carried for years had finally slipped away. She could still recall the hurt, the sharp edges of betrayal, the nights spent doubting her worth. But now those memories seemed distant, almost as though they belonged to someone else. The wounds he'd left had healed, replaced by a quiet strength she never knew she possessed. With every breath, Sasha felt more certain of the life she'd chosen. She glanced back at the store, at the warmth and safety she'd built for herself and Caleb, and realized how far she'd come. She had chosen love, not for someone else, but for herself and her son. Peace was no longer a dream, but the foundation of her future. And as she stepped into the evening, Sasha promised herself to keep nurturing that peace, making choices that honored her worth and protected her happiness. Whatever challenges waited on the horizon, she knew she was ready, for this was a life she had built and claimed, all her own. Epilogue. A future of her own. Sasha lingered in the store as evening draped golden light across the windows. Caleb slept in the office, his tiny hand clutching a well-loved blanket. She remembered the nights she had once spent waiting for footsteps at the door, her heart tight with hope and worry, convinced that love meant sacrificing every part of herself. She could still see the younger version of herself tidying rooms in silence, wondering if she'd ever be enough. Now the quiet no longer whispered of anxiety, but of contentment. The laughter that filled her evenings was Caleb's and her own, a melody of belonging she'd learned to treasure. Her uncle had always advised her to trust her own strength. Tonight she felt it settle into her bones. As she locked the doors and carried Caleb to the car, Sasha whispered an affirmation she wanted her son to inherit. We choose self-love and peace, always. With each step, Sasha moved deeper into a future she had claimed for herself. The weight of old wounds had given way to resilience, and for the first time she truly believed in her own worth. Sasha's story is a reminder that peace is a choice we make every day. Thank you for listening to Choosing Peace by author Logan. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to LA's Listening Lounge for more stories of love, life, and resilience. Until next time, may you always choose peace.